It got really messy. I like it messy sometimes.
If you're a fan of horror comedies, satirical movies that make fun of horror movies, movies that just feel like they're made for us horror fans, this is one of my sleeper picks that I think fans of my channel, fans of horror movies, fans of the genre, I can all but guarantee that you'll have a pretty decent time with this movie. That movie is called Vicious Fun. But what is the movie actually about? So it follows our main character, Joel, and for lack of a better description, the guy's kind of a loser. He has nothing really going for him. He's a horror magazine journalist. So it does kind of strike home for me because I'm a horror buff. Like a lot of you guys, I am just obsessed with this stuff. So in a different lifetime in the 80s, before we kind of had our little cult fandoms like this channel I have where we've all befriended over the fact we share this interest. So that's who this guy is. He runs a magazine called Horror Fanatics and he has the hots for his roommate, Sarah. And because of the fact that he has the hots for her and she just doesn't seemingly notice his existence, she is not interested in him whatsoever. He decides one day when he's leaving his apartment that he saw a guy making out with her in a car. He thinks this guy's a womanizer. He sees him with a wedding ring. So his grand scheme is that he's going to have this tape recorder in his pocket, follow this guy one night, and he's going to expose this guy as such a terrible guy to Sarah. That's how he's going to win her over. And by doing this, she's going to fall in love with him. That's how his head plays it out. As stupid as it sounds, that's what us men do. So maybe the plan sounded better in his head than in actuality, but that's what he's going to try to do to win the girl of his dreams. So he follows this guy to a Chinese restaurant. They hit it off a little bit, but the guy's also a douche. He stiffs him with the bill. He leaves with another girl. So he just drinks the night away over and over again until the point he blacks out in the janitor's closet, wakes up soon after hungover, and finds himself dead center of a serial killer convention. And what I mean by that is it's like a 12-step meeting, an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting for serial killers. What's going on basically is you have all of the most infamous serial killers in the country meeting up, having this face-to-face, heart-to-heart conversation in a circle, and they're all discussing their flaws, their strengths, how they dispose of bodies, all of the deranged things that a psychopathic serial killer would do, and somehow our main character Joel finds himself dead stuck in the middle of this. Now what I really like about this film, as I already said, this is just an homage to people like me, people who love these stupid, corny horror movies, every trope in the book, the way it describes killers, their passions, how they kill. This movie is like a wet dream for horror movie fanatics. That's why it's called Vicious Fun, because this movie is true to its title. It's just a stupid, vicious fun time. I also really like the fact that our main character, Joel, he's very well acted in this movie as this kind of corny, offbeat, awkward guy who's trying to win over his roommate. It started off kind of cringy to me because not all of the humor works in this movie, as I will get into. But throughout the movie, as it's going on, the central storyline of where it ends up turning, his motivations, I think are really inspired, and I think they do win you over and make you really want to root for this character, which, as I have said on the record numerous times on this channel, is very important in horror movies, especially old school slashers. You don't need to have characters you absolutely love, but you have to have at least somebody central to the story you want to make it out of this. We want bloody kills, but we also want a character to overcome this and make it through the bloody kills. We want Joel to succeed. Because as awkward as he is, we can see ourselves in him a little bit. He's a rootable character. He's a likable enough guy. He doesn't really do anything stupid to turn you off to who he is. Again, very important to the horror genre. I feel like that's something that's very lost nowadays. This movie is very self-aware that by making this guy the way he is, you want to root for him to overcome and eventually win her over because he's a good guy. Also, I thought the gore, the graphic kills, satisfying enough. They're nothing I haven't seen before, but as for a title, Vicious Fun, I think they are fun. I think they are vicious. I think they are graphic. I think that delivers for fans of the genre. Again, something I feel like we've kind of gotten away with in the most recent years where it's trying to be very PG-13, appeal to everybody. This is a movie I think that while it's not as extreme as movies like the Terrifier movies have become, I think it is satisfying to gore hounds, fans of the genre, fans of horror movies that are here for kills strictly. When you get to them, they're rewarding. This movie also has an absolutely killer soundtrack. I loved the score of this film. Absolute love letter to the 80s as it does take place in the 80s, but it has a ton of synth beats, 80s retro music, and not the best of collection we feel like we've seen 1,000 times. Don't fear the Reaper, I'm looking at you. But a collection of songs from the 80s, synth beats that if you're a fan of synthwave music, those beats that were prevalent in 80s films, jukebox music, you'll have a really good time with the score of this film because it's relentless, but it's noticeable and a lot of fun. And lastly, what I really enjoyed about this film is the central arc to our story of Joel. This movie has a couple of twists and turns that this movie chooses to take. I'm not going to give them away because it's very focal to the plot. When this movie is going along and it's progressing, it really won me over what the central arc to his character is, who he ends up meeting, his motivations. But by the end of the movie, he really won me over. There's some heartfelt moments. I really wanted him to succeed. and the whole movie kind of wrapped up in a very cohesive and satisfying way for what his character ended up becoming. This is one of those examples of a horror comedy I don't really think nails it perfectly. This is very close to being a legendary horror comedy. There's just something off about it. And something I do think was off was the comedy mix. I think it was a little bit forced. Some of the jokes come off a little bit cringy, but some of the jokes I feel like just went on a little bit too long. There's about 10 to 15 minutes of this movie that could really be shaved off. And if you've seen this movie, you'll probably know what I'm talking about, but in the police station specifically with a couple of cops, it felt like they were kind of saying the same type of joke over and over again, just in different ways for like 10 minutes. They could have probably shaved almost all of that out, and I think the movie's just better for it. And then as another negative, I'll say there's a variety of killers in this movie, and I don't think they're fully realized either. Again, in my mind, I feel like I kind of wanted to like this movie more than I did, even though I did have a really good time with it, because they kind of open up the possibility, kind of like a John Wick thing where you have a variety of different killers and they all have different tactics and they're all so unique. And you get snippets of that, which is really fun, but I think they could have went even further, trimmed some of the comedy off and focused into that, their specificity and how unique they are. And lastly, the only negative I have, and I guess it's kind of a positive on the other regard because it relates to Joel's character, his central incentive to this movie to win over Sarah is kind of hard to root for at certain points because she just seems like such a bitch. Again, you don't need to write epic characters for a horror movie, but his main incentive is to win over a girl who has just proven time and time again to not care about him and be a piece of shit. So there are points in this movie I'm just kind of thinking, Joel, you can do better, bro. When that's a central motivation to the movie, it does take away from the fact that this is his incentive, you're rooting for it. It changes over time, and I think what it changes into is a lot more rewarding. But taking all of this into consideration, I had a really good time with this movie, and the person I watched it with too was laughing their ass off. I didn't find the comedy that effective, but overall I had a really fun time with this movie, and I thought it was a really unique concept. If it sounds interesting in theory, I recommend you check it out. It's got some really good acting by our main character, an homage to 80s slashers, an awesome soundtrack, some satisfying kills. A couple of things I would have changed up that I think hold this back from being a legendary horror comedy that basically everybody will hear of at some point. But all that being said, if you're a fan of my channel, you take my recommendations seriously, you like horror comedy, something unique, I recommend you check out Vicious Fun. I had a blast with this film. I think it's a good time and it's worth buying on Blu-ray. So I know this movie's not brand new or anything, but if you have seen or heard of this movie, comment down below, let me know what you think. Do you think this movie was as fun as I thought it was? And as always, if you haven't subscribed, like the video, commented down below. It all really helps the channel, but I will see you in my next review. Peace!